All right. So welcome, Ish, to Now What. I don't think I can be more excited to get a guest in this podcast. You are definitely the my uh, a guy that I look up to a lot, and so I'm very happy to welcome you to Now What.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And how's my sound? Is that okay?
The sound is perfect. I
Cool.
think it is better than mine, so it's great.
All good.
You're a podcaster, by the way, so you have all your skills and the tricks you need.
Had to, man. Had to set it up for you.
All right. So let's get into it. I want to know a little bit about your background. You have done so many things, and I want you to give a brief background of yourself, especially what you did in high school and college that brought you to the point that you are right now.
Yeah, of course. So everybody that's listening, my full name is Ismael Verduzco el Tercero. Everybody calls me Ish though. I'm also a DJ, so DJ Ish is kind of like my nickname, I guess. I grew up in Los Angeles. I lived in the Inland Empire, which is like suburb area of LA for some of my upbringing as well. I went to high school at Etiwanda High School. It's like a big sports school. So I played swim. I was on the swim team. I played soccer. I played football. I was on ASB, which is like the planning team, the planning group of the school. I was also part of a couple of different AP groups, like advanced classes groups. Even though I wasn't a great student, but I still like to punch above my weight class. So yeah, I was very involved ever since I was like middle school, I guess, all the way to high school, and then that carried on to college when I went to school at UC Merced, which is like a really small school. I mean, it's bigger now, but um, it's basically the newest UC in the UC system, and it's in Merced, California, which is like in the middle of California, just above Fresno. So if you've never driven up in the middle of California, you've never seen it. Really small school, and there I was extremely involved as well. So I played I was on the soccer team my first year. I was on like the business society, which is the school's business club. I was a part of a business fraternity. I did events, so I planned the school's concerts, like the big events that the school hosted. I planned those, and yeah, I mean, I just did a ton. I was extremely involved. I liked it. Merced was an interesting place because, unlike Berkeley and LA, UCLA, there wasn't much to do outside of the school. So like there weren't very many bars, there weren't nightclubs, there weren't like things to do aside from like nature. So we found that the only way to keep us busy is to like entertain ourselves or get really involved with school, which I did both. And I also started DJing a lot in college too. So I started DJing like my freshman year, then in sophomore year and junior year and senior year just kept elevating. So by senior year, I was DJing like 3 or 4 nights a week while juggling a full schedule of classes while doing like 3 different internships for the school.
And while I like it so much, I like it so much because you're doing so many things at once, and your mind is capable of juggling with all those kind of things at once. And I see myself in there so much. That's why I look up to you, man.
Thank you, man.
And so, can we describe a little bit why did you have this crave of doing many things, right? A lot of people are focalizing only on one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you see other people seems to focalize on many things. So why do you think you have that crave to do more and more and more?
You know, I've been recently thinking about this more and more lately in the past couple months, even after the book has launched, even more. My parents luckily put me in sports and activities when I was really young. So like in elementary school, I was doing baseball after like baseball practice and stuff like that. But I think it also comes from the fact that like my mom is like a hustler. So like she's always done a lot of things, like take care of the kids, but also have her own business, but also like cook and do like super mom basically, you know? So like having her in my life as a kid and being able to like seeing that she's able to like pursue her passions and like still make it work and make ends meet and like cook and clean and ensure that we're well taken care of and like we're going down the right path. I think that was a good example for me in terms of like, well, your job is not what defines you. You know, like there's a lot more that makes up who you are as a person. It's not just like if you hate your job or if you hate current life situation, you can always make it better by adding a little bit of whatever you like, whether that's a club, an organization, a sport, a hobby. So I think it's like two parts, partially because I just grew up doing a couple of different things, and then it escalated as the years went on. But also like you're a product of your environment too. So if you have people in your environment that are entrepreneurial and achieving their passions, and it's going to rub off on you. And if you don't have those people, then we live in the era of the 21st century where you have podcasts like this, so you can find people and listen to them on a daily basis and like let them rub off on you. Because I know that everybody's not as lucky of a situation where they have somebody in their close family that has that entrepreneurial hustle or that just craving to learn and grow, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And this is a huge part of your book, and we're going to get into it later. And the struggle to find a mentorship, and the easy way to find a mentorship in the 21st century with all the things that we have, like LinkedIn and YouTube. And so, as a matter of fact, I found you via LinkedIn without any kind of struggle, right? Apart from trying to get the attention, but. So what kind of skills do you think you got from doing so many activities at once? In a world where a lot of people are telling you focalize on a niche, find your niche. I'm a believer that you gotta be able to juggle with different things at once. So what kind of skills do you get from that? And because you are a successful person, so there is a strict correlation that you can do that and be successful.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, like in like middle school and high school, I was kind of doing random stuff. High school less, but definitely like middle school, I was doing random things. Like they just wanted to taste and try. I don't know who it was, but somebody when I was younger told me like, if you don't know what you like, just try different things and then you'll find something. And then you start refining it. So if you like some aspect of marketing, well, what aspect of marketing do you like? Do you like digital marketing? Do you like social media marketing? Do you like email marketing? And the more that you try and taste these more niche things within the broader category that you like, then you end up finding something that you really like. But it's funny, if you look at all the things that I like dedicate my time to, they're all aligned in some way or another, even though they look really, really, really different. You have to take like 50 steps back in order to really see the bird's eye view of how they all intertwine and interconnect. So I'll kind of break it down for you because it's a little bit complex. So I told you I'm a DJ. I work in tech. I'm a DJ.
Absolutely.
I'm a DJ. I work in tech. I work in diversity. I wrote a book. I like sharing on social media. I had an events company myself with a best friend. And I like to work out. So all of those things are intertwined in some fashion. And each different category that I dedicate my time to boosts another category. Either promotes it or helps me thrive in another category. So they all look really random. I know it sounds crazy, but working out is a foundation. Working out is the mental reset every single day. Without working out and getting my sleep, then everything else drops tremendously. So that's how that one impacts all the other ones. When I had my events business with one of my best friends, we did events because we liked creating experiences that people can share together, like a shared experience. When you're in a nightclub and your favorite DJ is performing and you look around and 300 people are all singing to the same exact song and dancing, that's a shared experience. You know, when you're Latino and you're like, go to a Latino event or you go to like a Latino party and like the song comes on, a certain song comes on, you're like, oh my God, that's my song. Like that's a shared experience. And that translates to like now diversity and inclusion, the work that I'm doing now at Snap. It's like you're creating shared experiences and helping other people understand what it's like in that shared experience, even if you don't relate to it 100%. DJing, same thing. You're like, I don't always like to be the center of attention, but I like to be the person that's like pulling the strings to make things happen for everybody else in the room. And that's it translates to like marketing. I've learned so much in DJing that I like DJing and promoting events and like nightlife industry. I think nightlife industry is like 10 steps ahead of everybody in terms of marketing. So if you're a marketer out there, look at your local promoter, your local DJ club or whatever. But I've learned so many things there and I translated to my old role at LinkedIn as social media marketing. So like they all intertwine. The things that I learned in my marketing job, I promote it when I use it for the book. When I promote it, when I use it for the podcast, I use it when I promote my DJ gigs. Creating content, like if I'm creating content on an every single day basis, I'm getting better and better at copywriting. Copywriting is going to help me when I write the book, when I write these blog posts, when I write these ebooks. Like they all intertwine. But if you look at them one off, they're like, what the heck? Ish is doing like 8 different things and they're all super random. But I think one of the questions the main question that you asked is like, what's something that I've learned or what's like a skill? I think being able to have that sight of like, oh, okay, well, I like doing this one thing. How can I take one aspect of it and it'll increase another area of my life? Or how can I fit it in my schedule so that it doesn't throw other things off? So if you like learning and you love learning, how can you fit learning into your day so that it helps another aspect? So if you like learning, but you also like marketing, well, then maybe you listen to a 30-minute podcast every single morning when you go on your run and while you're stretching, so that in 5 days, you just got like 3 hours of learning, and then over time, you just get better and better at marketing because you're like learning these things consciously. So
yeah,
hope that answers.
And absolutely. And because this is a very wide conversation about how seeing different things in the world at the end spark your creativity in what your actually your task is in that moment. And the greatest ideas comes when you're doing something else, when you're under the shower, or when you do something else, right? When you're not focused 100% on that work, because the creativity sparks like that. And I think this is a wonderful conversation about it. And so let's go a little bit into, because if not, we're going to go into personal development. So right away. So can you tell me a little bit about how did you get into LinkedIn, and then how did you get into Snap? Put yourself in on a perspective of a college student that wants to get into the tech industry, right?
Yeah. So to give hope for everybody out there that's like, these companies will never hire somebody like me. That was me. Like I didn't get into tech the traditional way. And the traditional way that people get into tech is like a recruiter messages you on LinkedIn or emails you and says, hey, I would love to interview for this awesome job at this awesome company. Let me know what time you're free. Like that, I was the opposite, So like when I graduated in 2014, that's that winter before, so like 6 months before graduating, I spent those 6 months applying for so many different jobs. And like, yeah, maybe my approach could have been better, but I applied to hundreds of jobs, probably close to like 300 jobs, individual like applications, individual resumes, individual cover letters. Like it takes so much time, and everybody who's listening understands the struggle. But, so the way that I got in was a friend from college happened to be a contractor at LinkedIn. And what it means to be a contractor is like, you're technically not a full-time employee. You don't have all the benefits, but you're working at the company on behalf of another company. So you're doing all the same deliverables and job responsibilities as everybody else, but you don't have all the benefits. And so I reached out to him and basically said like, hey, I see this events role, and I had done events all throughout college. Like I was pretty well known as the events guy in college. And I said, yo, like this job looks like it's perfect for me. Like it's right up my alley. I meet the requirements, the right amount of skill, like all that. And I just kept nagging at him over like the next month, over the next couple of weeks. And I was just like, dude, like it's getting late. Like I know they're going to hire somebody. Please put me on the phone with the manager. Like, let me give me a shot, And I somehow convinced him to put me on the phone with his manager, which was a person hiring for the role. And I don't know if this is like new grad confidence that I had or something like that, or maybe it was just like stupid, but I mean, in retrospect, I was happy that I did it. But yeah, I basically spoke to the hiring manager and said like, hey, my name is so-and-so, did my pitch, talked about like 60 seconds of what I did in college and why this job is perfect for me, why I've loved LinkedIn since I was like in college. And somehow like I convinced her to give me a shot. So I told her, I was like, hey, today's Wednesday. I'll be in San Francisco tomorrow to interview if that works for you. She's like, wait, you're in LA, right? I was like, yeah. She's like, are you going to get up here? I'll drive up overnight if I need to. I'll be there at 8 a.m. She's like, wow, you're crazy. She's like, no, you can have till Friday. Drove up, And this is for a contract gig. And I was working at 24 Hour Fitness down in LA, living with my family because I couldn't find a job right after college. But drove up still that night, slept on my friend's couch, and interviewed that Friday. I interviewed for the event coordinator role. I thought I did well. Wait, no, when I got to San Francisco that day, she called me and she said, "Hey, I have some bad news." She said, the event coordinator role that you're going to interview for, it just got filled. She's like, "But we have a recruiting coordinator role if you want to interview for that." And I was like, "Sure, anything. I just need to get my foot in. From there, I'll figure it out." So I interviewed for the recruiting coordinator role. I did horrible. Like I failed so bad. Like there was like a scheduling matrix that they gave me that you have to like do, and I just like flopped. But I kept referring to my event experience and my passion for events throughout all the interviews that I had. And then later on that evening, around like 5 p.m., I was in the Mission District in San Francisco. I remember it clearly. And she called me. She said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, you didn't do too well for your recruiting coordination interview." It's like, "So we're unfortunately not going to be able to give you that role, but you showed so much like excitement and energy for events that we're going to open up another contract role for you there." So like, I guess if we're going to summarize what I did, it's like, A, getting out of your comfort zone. B, thinking more creatively to get to the person that's interviewing for the role. So if you're looking at recruiters and you're just messaging them on LinkedIn, like that's not going to cut it. Like what else can you do? Can you create a website? Oh, I also created a website. I created a portfolio, like a printout portfolio, and it was 2 pages, and it was kind of like a newsletter, and it was like New York Times style. And each section of the newsletter was like, "Here's why I'm qualified for the role and why you need to hire me. And here's why I'm a hyperactive user of LinkedIn." So like the different aspects is like
Specifically, it
specifically, yeah,
was specifically for LinkedIn.
yeah, I did just for LinkedIn.
Great.
So like I showed that I was like an advocate of the company, advocate of the brand. I showed how I'm a hyper user of the product. I showed why I'm specifically good at that specific job, not like, "Hey, I'm a great candidate for lots of jobs. Here's all my skills." It's like, no, you guys are looking for somebody who has great event experience, is able to do purchase orders, is able to manage money, this and that. Like I've done all that. Here's my experience. Like it's very specific. And then even when I didn't get to interview for the role that I thought I was going to interview for, I still just like not going to lose hope, like here's why I love that role. Even if this is not a fit, like I would love an opportunity to interview or to like at least get a shot at this. So that's kind of like how I broke it down. I mean, I didn't know that I was doing it in the moment. I was just kind of going with it. But I guess it was more strategic than I thought.
It was definitely strategic, and the fact that you built a portfolio just for that role is something that a lot of people are telling us now to do, but I don't think it was so famous. A famous approach on that.
Because like, if you think about it, like this is kind of how I view like a lot of aspects of life. 90%, if there's 100 people, 90 people are going to do like whatever route exactly the same, So if it's like applying for a job, 90 of them are going to just apply for the job online and do nothing else. Maybe 5 of them are going to they're going to apply online, submit a great cover letter, and find somebody at the company to give them referrals. Those are probably the ones that are going to interview. And then there's maybe like a couple of people that are going to apply online, find a referral, create a website, create a portfolio, message the recruiter personally, or find their email somehow and message them with a really good message, and then link their links to like basically sell them. And then those are the people that are going to get like selected, because it's like, if you're a recruiter and you have like tons of roles and you're trying to hire for somebody, how do you pick who's going to go above and beyond? If one person did all of this stuff and show that they're very actively passionate about the role and the company, and then 90 people just applied, like, yeah, you might look through the other 90 people and see if there was somebody that's really good, but you're probably going to take 20 minutes and talk to this other person that like went above and beyond, right? So just like in every aspect of like work or projects or like sports or activities, like how can you be part of that like 5% that just goes above and beyond?
You gotta outwork your competition, and talent is overlooked, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you could just outcreate, like be more creative than them, and it doesn't even take that much. Like to create the newsletter, it took me like 2 hours. I think I created it using Canva back then, and the Canva was still like not as popular. But I like, it was all in my head. I just, I needed to put it on paper. Like, here's why I'm great for the role. Here's why, like, I love LinkedIn. Here's what I've done. I had my resume already. So it was just like taking the aspects of my resume and making it look more in a different format, you know?
Mm-hmm. And how was the career at LinkedIn from that point on?
It was
Once you
good.
got your foot in the door?
Yeah, I was there for 5 years. My first role was that contract events role that I did. And then after like 10 months, my contract was going to be up. So I started talking to different hiring managers at the company, and like different people on the team that I had worked with. And I started being interested in going down the recruiting route to become a recruiter. I was also at the time like trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. I was kind of lost a little bit. I had done events for a couple of years. It started to get kind of like boring for me. So I was like, all right, well, what's next? And then I kind of went down this journey of like learning what I like to do. And I figured like, well, I'm great talking to people. I like talking to people. So I could do sales. I could do relationship management role. I could do recruiting. And I was like, but I also loved marketing since I was a kid, and I've always been passionate about it, but I never thought I could actually get a marketing role because everybody wants to do marketing, you know? So it was like sales, recruiting, marketing. I can continue going down the events role and just keep getting promoted. Um, and I talked to different people for each of them. So I did my research. I talked to people that were in the roles. I talked to hiring managers. I looked online for jobs, all that. I knew front and back what each job requirement would I would do in the role. And then when I was about to like get the role for, it was like a recruiting associate role, my manager basically said like, hey, we want to bring you on full time. You can do your events job, and you can also do social media marketing on the side, which was something that I was already doing, but I wanted to be like more official part of my role, officially part of my role. So then my second role was kind of like a hybrid. I started doing like events, recruiting events, social media marketing, working on different like project coordinator basically. My third role, or it was like kind of like second and third role, doing like more of employer branding, so heavy on the marketing, heavy on the comms. And then my last role at LinkedIn was all social media marketing. So I led social media for LinkedIn's biggest business line, which is Talent Solutions. So if you think of like LinkedIn Recruiter, that product sits under Talent Solutions. And yeah, and then I came to Snap. I did like a whole 180 and flipped my career a bit. I've always been passionate about diversity and inclusion, but I never had the opportunity to kind of like work on really meaty projects. Like I done stuff at LinkedIn. I've done stuff during my free time. But I thought like, hey, I'm still young enough to the point where I can flip my career. And if it doesn't work out, if I don't like it as much as I thought, I can always go back to marketing. I can always go back to events. I can always try a different route, but I'm not like 20 years deep in my career where it's like more of a risk, you know. I'm still like early enough where I can pivot. Doesn't work, pivot. Doesn't work, pivot. And yeah, I've loved it so far. It's been a ton of work. I mean, as you can imagine, all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, but it's rewarding work. Definitely.
It's definitely a challenging time for diversity and inclusion roles.
Yeah.
Very tough. And can you say briefly, why did you change, and why did you feel the need to change from a well-established company like LinkedIn to a more little one with less people in there, like Snapchat?
There's a lot of different. Like everything that I do in my life, I break it down and I analyze it in every aspect. So I thought about it for about a month. I was coming up on my 5 years at LinkedIn, and I was like, well, I can keep working at LinkedIn forever, and it would be great, you know. But I started thinking about it. I was like, all right, 5 years at LinkedIn. If I go working 10 years at one company, and people have like their own opinions about it, you know, but I was like, I have 5 years under my belt here. Let's go work for another company and see what it's like. LinkedIn was also getting really big. So it was like, when I started, it was like 7,000 employees. When I finished, it was like 15,000, got acquired by Microsoft. So it changed a lot. It was like a big startup when I started, and then it became like a more corporate company. So that was one piece of it. The second piece was like, all right, I spent 5 years here. Let's see what else there is out there before I end up spending 10 years here. And then it's kind of like more difficult to like switch gears and change and start at a new company and start from the ground up, build your name, all that stuff. And then the other thing is like, I was always passionate about Snap. So Snap was my dream company when I was like 19, 20, I told one of my best friends that I started my events company with, I was like, hey, one day I'm going to work for Snapchat, watch. And he's just like, you're crazy. What the hell? Like, shut up. Like nobody we know works at these companies like Snapchat, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then when I was my senior year, I told him, I was like, like, I love LinkedIn. I think there's like this huge power in it that nobody's using, especially college students. I was like, I'm going to try to work there one day. And he's like, dude, you're crazy. Like, I don't, but I've always had these like extremely ambitious, not even goals. I would always just say like, hey, I'm going to go do that. And people would just be like, okay, it's like, you're going to go DJ in Vegas. You're going to write a book. You're going to work at LinkedIn. Like, all right. And then I'll just go do it. And then it feels so good to be able to like say you wanted to do something and then like keep your promise to yourself,
To yourself and to the peers, maybe you are telling those things.
Yeah,
you gotta have some peer pressure in order to excel in the
and a part of like the chapter 1 of the book, which you'll know very well, is like understanding what makes you thrive and like what understanding you in every single aspect. So one aspect that I know about myself very well is I thrive under pressure. Sometimes it's stressful, but and I set myself up in pressurous situations, even if it's like minor pressure. But that's one of the reasons why on social media I post every single day what I'm doing. It's because it's accountability. If I miss my workout today, there's a calendar on my wall right now that's staring right back at me. If I miss it, that's an X that's missing on the wall, like a check mark. If I share on social media every day that I'm working out, that's me being accountable to myself, but being accountable to like a broader group of people. So it's like I get the constant feedback all the time. And if I don't get that feedback, that means like, oh, I didn't do it. So I put myself in these like little subtle pressure situations because I know that that's what's going to make me like inch in the right direction.
Yeah, and for people that don't know that, now it's 7:45.
Yeah,
7:49. Yeah, 7:49 in the morning for Ish. For me, it's a little bit later. It's 5 p.m. I was up at 7 in the morning as well. But can I just for people to know? Can you tell me a little bit about your routine in the day?
Yeah, of course. I have for a really long time now. I've been extremely strict with my routines, and I think it comes with growing up doing a lot of different things. Like, there's no way that you can do sports and clubs and organizations and school and family and have a social life without having set routines and set schedules and set things that you do at certain times. So this is literally the key. If you don't get anything else from this podcast, it is setting strict schedules with times and walls and barriers when you stop doing something and you start doing something, and you have to be able to mentally shut off and mentally shut on. Like if you're in family, turn off work mode as much as possible. Put your phone off, close your laptop. If you're on work mode, turn your phone on do not disturb. Like, close the door, make sure you have water so you're not going up unnecessarily from your desk, those little things. But back to your question. So my schedule, my routine is very strict and it's very regimented. So I've refined it over time and I've adjusted it over time. I wake up at 5:05 in the morning. I have my lights that come on in my room. I have these like LiftX light bulbs. So they turn on by themselves because they're connected to Wi-Fi at 5 o'clock in the morning. By 5:05, they're fully on. They're like golden light on, because something about your body, when your eyelids feel light, they think it's time to wake up, even if it isn't. So a little hack here, if you want to hack that, which I used to do when I was DJing a lot, I would turn on the lights at night and keep them super bright. So like it felt like a doctor's office inside my room, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday night, because my body thought it was like time to stay awake. So I kind of just used that to my advantage. But yeah, I wake up at 5:05 in the morning, brush my teeth, grab some water, have like a fruit if I can, change, and I start working out by like 5:15, 5:20 at the latest. And I have my little gym set up that I got some weights, so I work out 5 to 6 times a week from 5:20 in the morning until about like 6:15. If it's a good day, sometimes I'll go a little bit over, like 6:30, and then 6:30 I'll sit outside on my porch for like 10-15 minutes and just like let the calm set in, like like adrenaline endorphins are flowing. And I kind of just like relax, try to be off my phone and just like sit there for like a little bit before the craziness of the day. Then I have a protein shake, jump in the shower. By that time, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. Then from like 7 to 7:30, I'll do like personal stuff. So if that means like journaling. Another thing is like when I work out in the morning, I know people are saying like, what the hell, you work out at 5 a.m.? That's crazy. Yeah, I used to be a night owl
That's
for
great.
like my whole life. I was a night owl. But I learned that when I wake up early now, I have this crazy amount of creativity that I didn't have in the mornings before. You know, when you're exhausted and you wake up after 9 hours of sleeping and it's like 8 a.m., the first thing you do is drink a cup of coffee and you go to work. Like you're still waking up. Your body is still trying to recover from like the long night that you had in the day before. But by 8 o'clock in the morning, when I'm finally getting started after journaling and relaxing, I've been up for 3 hours. My body's fully awake. My mind is flowing. My creativity is flowing. Like I have a level of focus because I have the focus from the workout. It flows into the workday. Um, so I usually start about 8 o'clock. I try to start sooner if possible. Like if I have a ton of projects, and then from 8 to noon, then I'll have lunch at noon. Try to take a break around 3 p.m. Finish work around 5 or 6. If it's a long day, we'll finish work around 7. Then have dinner with some family, either my grandma or family member. And then it's like 8 o'clock by then, almost time to go to sleep because I go to bed by I try to be in bed by 9 and lights out by 10. So for that hour or 2 hours or 3 hours from 6 to 9 after eating or before eating or after eating, it's usually just like projects. So what is other side projects that I'm working on? If I'm working on a book, DJing, when I was DJing like a ton, I would practice during that time. Yeah. And when I was DJing a ton, my schedule was flipped. So I was like waking up, going to work and then working out after work at 5, 6 p.m. And then I was going home, showering and practicing for like 5 hours until like 1 in the morning, and then going to sleep at like 2 in the morning, and then waking up at like 7 in the morning, which was really bad because I wasn't sleeping much. I was only sleeping like 4 or 5 hours, and then it catches up to you. If you think you can do it, trust me, I thought I could too. I thought I was Superman. And then one day, I just felt exhausted, and I was like, why do I feel tired? I slept a good amount last night, and the good amount at the time was like 7 hours. But then I was like, the next day again, I feel exhausted. The next day, I feel exhausted. So I was like, this is not good. And I just realized I was overworking myself. I was like going above and beyond at work during my day job. So I was mentally exhausted. And then I was like physically exhausted from continuing to work out. And then on top of that, I was like practicing. So it was like you're exerting all your energy. And then it took me about a month or a little bit over a month to recover from that, of just like sleeping 8 to 10 hours, 8 to like 9 hours a night for like a month and a half, and not doing anything else because I was just like felt tired. So if you think you can do it, maybe you're in college and you can do it in the meantime. But once you start working at like a full-time job and you're doing other things, or you have family, like if you can get your sleep, get it, because it's the most important thing. And if that means taking naps, like I'm not a nap person, but I have friends and I know people, a lot of successful people that I studied, they take naps, 20-minute nap here and there. Like it helps a lot, you know, it's a mental reset as well.
There is you don't want to mess with your sleep schedule. 8 hours are not negotiable.
Yeah,
Seven
man.
to 8 hours are not negotiable.
Yes.
and
Trust me.
and
And when you're
I
young,
I
people are like, I could do it. I'm okay. I could sleep 5. Like that was me. And then, and then I got like
oh
exhausted.
man, catches up, and I did the same, and I thought that I was able to do 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night and then catch it up as well. And there is no negotiable. 8 hours at least, 7.5 hours, 8 hours at least. Sleeping is very important. Recover is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, but when did you start doing that? So when you see me smiling during the interview, it's because I love that, and I do that constantly, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly working on it, and constantly trying to refine my schedule and the best time to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
But when did you start learning about it? When did you start about personal development, about all the habits, all the routines? Because when I read in your book that you didn't really read
Yeah,
until
I
23,
did it.
right?
hmm So I didn't read, like I think I liked reading like Harry Potter, and that was about it. Maybe like Captain Underpants when I was like way younger. But I didn't like reading. Like even in high school, I didn't like reading the books that we were supposed to read. I never read them. I would like read the Cliff Notes, which is really bad, but I would watch the movies if possible, but I didn't like reading them. Even in college, I didn't like reading. Reading was nothing I did on the side. Like it was never a hobby. I didn't read books, which is really bad. Um, I liked reading articles, and I thought I was getting really smart from reading all these articles and like hacks and tips and tricks. And I was like, I'm not really getting anything in the long term from this. But yeah, like I graduated, started working at LinkedIn for a year or two, and then I came across this book called Smart Cuts by Shane Snow. And I don't know who gave me that book or how I might have found the guy on LinkedIn, and I just like download, like I liked his content. He was a marketer, the author Shane Snow. And then I bought his book on Amazon, and then I read it and I was mind blown. Like it's a good book. Shane Snow is a great guy. I don't think it's like the best book, but it was the first book that I had read in that category of self-development and like personal growth. Because my whole life, and I think I talk about in the book too, my whole life, I was never a good reader or writer. Um, and I think it was like partially because I didn't like it, but partially because I thought it was really difficult for me, like speaking two languages growing up, English and Spanish. um Sometimes I would get my terms mixed up, so I would say things in Spanish and they're really in English, and English and Spanish tenses. And so like as a kid I got discouraged. So like I'm not good at reading, so like I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be great at it. But when I was 23 and I read that book by Shane Snow, um like a light bulb clicked in my head. I was like, holy shit, I'm missing out on learning stuff that I could like to do. Because when you're in school, they tell you what to do. You have to learn about this, you have to read this, you have to do that. And then now I was out of school and I had this free time per se, like outside of work, and I could read whatever I want to read, you know? And I had the time to do it, the energy to do it. Uh, so that was like the turning point. Like, and after that, I started like, I think I reread it twice in a row, like back to back. And then I was like, this is unreal. And then I started to find like, what are other books that are like this? You know, I started to like learn about Simon Sinek, Tim Ferriss, all those authors. And then I just kept going and going and going. Then it came about like podcasts, and tried to find podcasts that were about personal development and people's stories and how they got to where they are. And then it was like documentaries for a while. And I went and just like relentlessly just watch tons of documentaries and try to like pick up on little things and learn about people's stories, and famous people and not famous people, like people when it came to like history, sports, athletes, like musicians, like race car drivers, like random stuff, you know, but just trying to find the people that are the best at what they did or really good at what they did, and learn about their stories and learn about, because the way I put it in my mind is, if this person went through a lot of like f ups and like screw ups, I can learn through them. You know, my grandma told me that when I was like a kid. It's like, if you can learn by somebody else's mistakes, that's better, because you're at least more aware of them. You might still go through them, but at least you're more aware of them when you're about to like hit one of those moments. And so that's kind of what I did with learning. Is like, well, these people wrote books. These people have their stories that they told in podcasts and documentaries. Why not learn from them? And then little by little, I'll just keep growing like a little gold mine in my head. And then it's situational. So it's not like I'm extremely smart guy. I don't think I'm a very smart guy at all, but I've just picked up on so many nuggets along the way that now when I'm placed in a situation, I have so much in my head that I can pull from, or like adjust or switch the way I'm speaking, or how I present myself, or the way I explain things, or like culturally how I relate to people, you know. So, and that just comes from like learning so much and listening, learning, asking questions, asking thoughtful questions. But yeah, like you said, I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always a learner per se.
You optimize, right? Like apart from the fact that you're saying that you're not smart, but that's another question. And I don't think so, but it is the principle of optimizing whatever you have,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to optimize whatever you have, and to bring you to a goal, a
Mm-hmm.
goal that has to be smart, right? A smart goal, as you
Exactly.
as you
Smart
describe
goal.
in the book. So tell me a little bit about the book. How was it born? How it was born. I think it's like that. Sometimes my English just flows away. But
That's
tell me
okay.
a little bit about the book. It was born, and
Yeah,
why did you start reading?
of
Did you start
course.
writing?
So I never thought to write a book. If you ask all my English teachers from first grade to college, and you ask them who in this class is likely to write a book, I would probably be dead last in all of them, except for one. My third grade, not my third grade. What my Mr. Meltrager was the only teacher that ever believed in me for some reason. But I mean, all that aside, after doing after doing all this learning and after reading all these books, after listening to all the hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, like that's a lot of content. That's a lot of information. Daily blogs. At one point in my life, I was reading like 20 different blogs a day, 20 blog posts per day, all about hacks, personal development, finance, like habit building, routines, like tons of stuff. And so I was listening to Think and Grow Rich, the audiobook by Napoleon Hill, driving down the 5 freeway to see my sister in San Diego. And something about the book just spoke to me. And I know people listening to this, they're gonna be like, what the hell? What do you mean it spoke to you? Like, of course it spoke to you. It's a damn audiobook.
I'm so sorry. We had a little problem with the audio, and so we'll continue where we left off, and Ish is gonna change the mic. See you later.
You were driving to San Diego to see your sister.
Yeah. So I was driving down the 5 freeway to see my sister in San Diego. And like I said, I only take book recommendations from people who read as well, or from people who I just respect and value their opinion. And so when I picked up this book, people had told me, the people that recommended it to me said, something in the book is going to speak to you. I don't know what it is, and I don't know where it's going to be and how it's going to impact your life, whether it's for DJing, relationships, projects, work, family, but it's going to impact your life somehow. And something is going to come out of it, either a product or something good. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like this is a book recommendation from you, so I'm going to go ahead and listen to it. And I kid you not, like halfway through the book, I was driving down the 5 freeway, and something spoke to me in the book. And what it said was, or maybe it was just me subconsciously telling myself, was you are being selfish by not sharing what you're learning with other people from your community and people who you value in your life. And to summarize that and to like put that into like more basic terms is like, I'm learning all this stuff. I have friends and family who don't have the privilege to work in tech and to have this free time and to have access to all these different resources and be surrounded by learners and people who like want to constantly grow and self-development. I have a lot of friends, like most of my friends and family at the time, like they weren't about like reading, and like my high school friends weren't into that thing, you know? So it like a light bulb went in my head, like, what if I could just summarize everything that I learned, like the top things that make all these successful people successful, like habits, rituals, routines, mentorship, like developing schedules, like all this stuff. What if I could just summarize it and explain it to people? Here's how to do it. Here's how to do X. Here's how to do Y. Like that would be pretty cool, because I know a lot of friends that wouldn't read a book otherwise. And then I started to reflect on like, well, why don't they read? Why don't they learn from these people? And then I started to look at the industry, and I was like, oh snap, a lot of these people are like well-resourced white men. Like anybody who's listening to this and watching this interview, like look at all the self-development books in your library right now. Like most of them are white men. You have Tim Ferriss, Ryan Holiday, Malcolm Gladwell, Napoleon Hill, all of them. Like I looked at through all of my books from 2019, 45 books, 3 of them were written by people of color, and 0 of them were written by Latinos. But then I started thinking like, partially why I wrote it was I wanted to be able to help, educate, uplift, inspire my community, whether that's Latinos, Black, Asian, people from underrepresented groups that don't have that representation in this industry or representation in other industries or whatever they do. And then the other reason was like, I wanted to be somebody that's more relatable. Like I can be more relatable than a Tim Ferriss to my audience because I'm a person of color. I didn't grow up with a lot of privilege, as much privilege as these other authors, you know? So that's kind of like how it came about. And then I didn't want to write a book like I told you. So then I started thinking through like, well, I started convincing myself out of it. Like, okay, like maybe I'll do a blog series. But then I was like, blogs are great, but I can't think of one blog that positively changed my life so much that I reread it again and recommended it to so many people. So I was like, blogs are out of the picture. Maybe I could do a docu-series or like a video series, a YouTube series. And then I was like, I'm okay on camera, but I'm not like super charismatic YouTube blogger style guy. That's not my style. I like talking to people, interviews like this, but I don't like talking to a camera, like just me and a camera. That's out the picture. And then I started slowly like checking off all the things and like taking them off my list. And the last one on the list was book. I was like, damn it. Like this is not what I wanted to do. And then I was driving down to see my sister this whole time. And then I started thinking through it more and more. And I was like, this is the smartest thing to do because it's scalable. It can be translated to multiple different languages. It can be an ebook. It can be a physical book. I can give somebody a physical book after speaking to them for 5 minutes to say, I don't have that much time, but if you read this, it'll tell you everything you need to know. I can't do that with like a video because sometimes people's attention span gets lost. I can't do that with the blog because sometimes they lose the link or whatever, you know? So like there's something about having a physical piece of paper in front of you. And whether you like to read it, whether you want to read it or not, if it sits on your countertop or you're next to your bed, eventually it's going to just take up space and you're going to want to either open it or give it away. And you're probably going to try to open it. And if you open the first couple pages, I think I'll hook you enough to read the rest of the book, you know? So that's kind of how it came about. Like I said, I never wanted to write a book. I never thought I was going to be an author. And now I'm already like working on the next one. So it's crazy to see how things change so quickly.
Well, you know what, man? You told me very clearly that you were reading the book that changed your life and changed the way you saw about the learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you read that book back to back, and you started your journey from that book on.
Yeah.
And I think your book is going to do the same for many, many people that wants to go in that direction. That a lot of people needs to go in that direction. They don't have a gateway.
Yeah.
I read your book. I think your book is great, and it's a gateway for many people to go in that exploration that never ends, right? That when you start going in that direction, never ends.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna. So this is just the beginning of our conversation, of our real conversation, and I don't want to take too much time out of you. I know you have to go. I want to be respectful of your time. So why don't you come back for a round two and we talk about explicitly. We talk about your book and
you can chat for like 10 more minutes if you have other questions that you like eager to ask. I know you just read the book too, so like I can read it for time. So go ahead and ask away.
All right. Okay. So if I have to choose only one question,
you could choose
that
two.
From the book. Okay. Wonderful. And so I read a quote from your book, right? And I think this is one of the most important concepts that was in the book, and is the self concept. So being able to understand yourself. This is the quote that I highlighted. Self-schemas, past self, present self, future possible selves. They're well aware of every one of those key factors and what they mean overall, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me those perception about someone's self, and how can you change that perspective to know that you can achieve whatever goal you have in mind?
Yeah, it's hard to simplify it in like a quick pitch, but I'll give an overview. So essentially what that section of the book entails is understanding who you are in every different aspect, not just like who you are in terms of what inspires you, what makes you pissed off, what makes you more creative. And the way you break it down is by looking at your past self. So if you're 25 years old, from the past 25 years of your life, reflecting on different eras of your life. When you were in elementary school, kindergarten, middle school, high school, asking your parents, asking your grandparents about yourself. What did you like to do when you were younger? What are things that you gravitated towards? What are life-changing moments that have shaped you? Looking at your past self in many different aspects. More you can, because we change over time, you know, who you are when you were 12 is a different person who you are when you're 25. And so looking at those different stages of your life and understanding how they've shaped you and what you took from that era of your life. And also, when you're looking past, what are the trends that you see? Me looking back when I was younger, I've always had a niche for marketing. I've always been attracted to marketing. I remember when I was younger and I used to watch really crappy commercials, and I would say to myself like, God, this is so bad. Somebody's paying to make this. Like I could do a better job with my phone. And like, that's a marketer right there, you know? But unless you like take time to reflect, or you have somebody in your life that points that out to you, then you'll just kind of keep going your life, and maybe you'll become an engineer because everybody in your family tells you to become an engineer, which technically that happened to me. I went to college to become an engineer, and then I realized that I hated it. But yeah, so looking at your past self, your current self. So who are you right now in this current moment? What are you passionate about? What do you like about your life? Hate about your life? What you like about your job? Hate about your job? Relationships, projects, all these different things. What inspires you? Like I went through a whole list of questions, and I gave my personal example in depth of like, here's my self-analysis, past, current, and then future. So who can you be in the future in 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, if you make certain changes? Looking at your past self, if you notice that you've had bad habits your entire life, and those bad habits could be eating shitty, it could be like spending too much time on your phone, it could be like not spending the time with your family, like whatever those bad habits are. Your current self, where are you currently at, what needs to be changed, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be adjusted, and then your future self. If your goal to be successful is to write a book or to become fit or to get a job, well, then what needs to change in the current moment? Little things, big things. What can you adjust? What can you pull from in your past experiences to help you get in the future, you know? And it's just like a self-analysis. Treat yourself like a science experiment. How could you pick and pull and look at yourself objectively and ask yourself those questions? And then a part of the experience that I think is super important in the book that I mentioned as well is ask a friend, a best friend, or a family member that is ruthlessly truthful to you, no matter what, honest, and hand them the piece of paper. I did mine in like a story form. You can also do it in question form. You can also do it in like write the questions on a piece of paper and then answer them as much as possible. But hand that to a friend or family member, whoever it is that's truthful to you and really honest, and say like, does this sound like me, or am I like making it too like sometimes we want to be too nice to ourselves, you know? And then that person should give you honest feedback. So like that part is the most important, I think, because sometimes we want to tell ourselves this like pretty story and this lie, or we think something was a certain way when it actually wasn't, especially if we were younger, you know? So asking your parents, asking your family members is really important too, because they give you the full story. You only know a piece of it. Yeah, but that's the most important part of the entire book, because it sets up everything else. It's the foundation. If I can give you every hack in the world to be more productive, more successful, but if you don't take the time to like look inside and like understand yourself, then you could possibly end up in a place where you're doing all these things. These things are amazing to the public eye, but then you find yourself like, oh, I'm not really happy though. Like I'm doing all these things, but I'm not really excited doing them. Like, yeah, I'm good at it, but I'm not happy, you know? And that's because you didn't take the time to like look inside and say like, well, what are my likes? What are my dislikes? Where do I find energy? What drains my energy? You might be doing something that you're great at, you're making good money, but it drains your energy and your time and your attention. And then you have less time and energy and attention for your family or for your hobbies. And then you go down this cycle of like, oh shit, now I'm doing nothing all day because I'm just working and then sitting on a couch because I'm so exhausted and I have no much energy. I don't have the energy that I used to have when I was doing things that I enjoyed. So
definitely that the self-exploration part is the basic of the whole book, and you after that gives many tricks in order to understand that. You give a list of questions that you need to answer, and once you have that answer, then you're set up for the next chapter. I like the way your book is set up, because once you have that, so you can build on it.
Very thoughtful. Yeah, thank you.
It took so much time, and so can you tell me, just to give a little bit of a spoiler, can you tell me what is the next step then? Once you have done that self-exploration, what is the next step? Setting up your goals, but how do you do that? Some tricks.
Yeah, the direct section after self-exploration is, I call it game changers. So it's habits, rituals, and routines. And I've talked about this through this entire podcast, but these are the things that you do a little bit every single day, and in the longer periods of time, they add up. If you can set your routines, you can set your schedules, you can set your habits and tweak them and direct them in the right direction for a broader goal, then over time, over 6 months, over a year, over 2 years, you're going to make huge strides, you know? So like, for example, if you think about like Kobe Bryant as a basketball player, I think he talks about when he was 12 years old and he was like one of the worst players on his team, on his basketball team. And what he did was during recess, during recess and during lunch, while all the other kids that were way better than him were just eating and chilling and relaxing, he was playing basketball, and he was specifically working on the things that he was worst at. And then he would spend his summers in summer camps working on, if it's his jump shot or if it's his speed or if it's his endurance, the little things, the little tweaks. And then next thing you know, he came back, I think a year or two after, he was the best one on the team, like scoring way more than everybody else. So if you put that into relation to your life, and it's like, well, if I want to have a job in a year, that's a very ambitious goal. Let's make it 6 months. If I want to have my dream job in 6 months, what are the habits that I have to create on a daily basis that are going to help me get there? Well, maybe that means sending 5 LinkedIn messages every single day. Maybe that means applying for one job every day. That's 365 jobs in 1 year. You know, like, what is that? Cut that in half. It's like over 150, 180, whatever the number is. So then those are the habits. What are like the routines that you got to do? Well, if in order to be your best mentally when applying for a job and creating the resume and the cover letter and all that, that means that you got to be like mentally fit too. How can you get yourself mentally fit? That's getting your sleep, setting a strict schedule for sleeping, working out so that you don't have this extra energy or anxiousness built up. You have that focus, whether that's like spending time with your family and cutting so you don't just like work and don't just like put yourself in this black hole of like applying for jobs. You need to have a balance, you know? And then habits, rituals, routines. Routines is one that's often confused. So routines is, rituals is basically doing habits with a little bit more intent. So we all have bad habits. We all have good habits. Sometimes we're not really conscious of them, but setting a ritual is like, okay, I want to do X, and I'm going to do X by setting this in line, doing this every day. I'm going to drink my water, then I'm going to have my B12, and I'm going to have my protein shake, then I'm going to have 5 minutes spending like on the phone with my girlfriend to be mentally prepared for the next 5 hours that I'm going to spend working. That is like a very specific ritual, you know? And then doing that with intent, you're setting yourself for success in the short term and the long term.
Set you up for it is all about the things that you do today in order to be successful tomorrow.
Exactly. And then the rest of the book is basically like all the keys. So it's like, what else you need to know, how to do it. And that's the one thing that I missed in a lot of books is like a lot of books that I read is the how. And that's I mentioned that in the book too. It's like, okay, you're going to tell me that I'm going to be successful and I got to follow my passion. I got to do this. And it's like, well, how do I do it? Tell me how you did it. Because that's one thing the authors don't ever tell you, you know, they tell you how Kobe did it. They tell you how The Rock did it, which I did. I break down their stories in my book, but then they're like, they clearly leave out how they did it. You know, like I want to know how you did it. And that's what I made a point in the book. In every section, in every chapter, I tell my story. Like, yeah, I'm not as relatable as Kobe Bryant is. I'm not as relatable as like Michelle Obama or Oprah, because we've
Maybe,
had
maybe.
success for so long. But I'm more relatable, you know. I'm younger. I don't have maybe the same background as they do. But yeah, thank you. I hope you liked it, man.
No, I do like it, and I want a lot of people to read it to go in that kind of. I want my audience to read it in order to go in that sense, because what you said in the book, and it is clear what you're thinking. It is that all we put out, even if we study Kobe Bryant, even if we study Steve Jobs, even if we study Bill Gates, we study what they choose to put outside.
Yeah,
We don't study
exactly.
their whole life. We don't study their whole life, and we don't see their faults. We don't see their negative aspects. We see only the positive aspects. And
Mhm.
sometimes you need to be thoughtful of that, and you need to live your own experience, just live your life, and you will be able to achieve those goals as well. Maybe you're not going to be Bill Gates, but you're going to be happy, and that's what you want to do.
Exactly. I think the last thing that's worth mentioning about the book, and it's the very last section of the book, the last couple of sentences, was I mentioned different people in the book. Everybody's successful in their own way. For some people, that means money. For some people, that means fame. For some people, that means time to spend with their family. For some people, that means executing on projects 110% every single time. For some people, that means like getting their fit body. For some people, that means like buying their dream car. But like, it's crucially important. And as somebody who studied all these successful people, you need to define what that means for you. And it sounds like this cheesy mantra type of thing, but like if you don't,
Sure.
then you're just going to end up following somebody else's footsteps, and that's not always what you want, you know. Next thing you know, you're 45
You
years old,
cannot win.
your job.
You
Yeah,
cannot win. You
exactly.
cannot win with the same person if you play to be that person.
Exactly. You can never win.
It's just all right, man. That Ish, I think this sets us up for round two, and I hope we're gonna have a round two soon.
Yeah,
You are
of course.
super busy, but I really hope we're gonna have a round two, because there is so much more to talk, and you got so much knowledge that it can be attainable, and it is tangible to a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
You're not like a mystified creature up
exactly.
there. You're right here, and you're relatable, and I love that. So thank you very much for dedicating your time to this podcast, and I hope I can see you soon again. And do you have any parting thoughts for the audience? Something that you wanna say to them?
Um, I mean, I don't know too much about your audience, like the demographics, but if you're somebody who you feel like you've been underrepresented, overlooked, and not like well resourced, then this is the book for you. You know, like the majority group, and you know if you're in the majority group, the majority of the group has people like Tim Ferriss, has Ryan Holiday, has all these authors and self-development people and like inspirational people, has all these entrepreneurial people to look up to. The reason why I wrote it was to help people from underrepresented groups achieve their goals. And I was very clear about that from the very beginning. So whether you are a person in that group or not, you'll still learn a ton. But the language, the vernacular, the examples, the personal stories that I share, from the title to the book, all the way to like the back of the book about the author, like I specifically wrote it speaking to underrepresented groups. So I hope you guys like it, and thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.